Ladies and gentlemen, today we embark on a journey through time to uncover the fascinating history of one of the most iconic landscapes on Earth, the Sahara Desert. Though we see it now as an endless sea of sand, it has a past far richer than many imagine. Millions of years ago, the Sahara was not a desert at all. Geological studies and satellite imaging have revealed that this vast region once flourished with life. Rivers flowed, lakes stretched across the land, and lush vegetation covered its surface. Scientists call this period the Green Sahara, a time when the land could support a thriving ecosystem. Ancient rock carvings and cave paintings, some dating back over 10,000 years, tell the stories of those who once lived here. These artworks depict animals like giraffes, elephants, and even hippos, creatures that could never survive in the Sahara today. They also illustrate human activities such as fishing, farming, and ceremonies, proving that this region was once a cradle of civilization. Over time, changes in the Earth's climate altered the Sahara's fate. Shifts in rainfall patterns gradually dried up its rivers and lakes, forcing people and animals to adapt or migrate. However, this did not make the Sahara an empty wasteland. Instead, it became a bridge between great civilizations. Merchants crossed its vast expanse, connecting West Africa with North Africa and the Mediterranean world. The famous trans-Saharan trade routes brought gold, salt, and knowledge, influencing history far beyond the desert's borders. Beneath the Sahara's dunes, traces of its lush past still remain. Scientists have discovered underground water reservoirs, the remnants of ancient lakes, and even fossilized remains of marine creatures, proof that the Sahara was once covered by a prehistoric ocean. These hidden wonders continue to reveal the secrets of its transformation. Even today, the Sahara is evolving. With global climate change and desertification expanding its reach, new challenges arise. However, there is hope. Projects aimed at reforesting parts of the desert, harnessing solar energy, and managing water resources seek to shape a new future for this remarkable land. The Sahara's story is one of transformation, resilience, and mystery. It reminds us that nature is ever-changing and that even the harshest environments hold deep histories waiting to be uncovered. The Sahara Desert, often referred to as the largest hot desert on Earth, did not always exist in its current form. Its origins stretch back millions of years, shaped by geological forces, shifting climates, and the gradual transformation of ecosystems. Understanding the true history of this vast landscape requires looking beyond its present-day appearance and uncovering the natural processes that gave birth to it. Scientists believe that the Sahara began its transformation into a desert around 7 million years ago. However, before that, the region was vastly different. Fossil evidence suggests that it was once covered by dense forests, grasslands, and even shallow seas. The shifting of tectonic plates played a crucial role in shaping the land. As the African and Eurasian plates collided, mountain ranges such as the Atlas Mountains rose, altering wind and precipitation patterns. This geological activity contributed to long-term changes in the region's climate. One of the most significant factors in the Sahara's formation is the planet's changing orbit and axial tilt. These variations, known as Milankovitch cycles, influence the distribution of sunlight on Earth and impact monsoon patterns. Every 20,000 to 25,000 years, these shifts cause dramatic changes in rainfall over North Africa. During wet periods, the region supports lush vegetation and abundant water sources, while in dry periods, desert conditions expand. This cycle of climate change has occurred multiple times throughout history, turning the Sahara into a dynamic and ever-changing landscape. Further evidence of the Sahara's origins comes from the discovery of marine fossils buried beneath its sand. These fossils indicate that, millions of years ago, parts of the Sahara were once submerged under an ancient sea. The presence of whale skeletons, shark teeth, and shellfish fossils suggests that vast stretches of the region were covered by water, supporting a rich marine ecosystem. As sea levels changed and land masses shifted, these ancient waters receded, leaving behind vast plains that eventually became the desert we see today. Despite its harsh, arid environment, the Sahara's geological history reveals a story of constant transformation. Beneath the sand dunes lie the remains of ancient rivers and lake beds, hinting at a time when life thrived here. These hidden features continue to shape our understanding of the Sahara's past, proving that it is not merely a barren wasteland, but a land with a complex and fascinating history. The Sahara Desert, known today for its vast dunes and extreme temperatures, was not always the arid landscape we see. In fact, it was once a thriving, green expanse filled with rivers, lakes, and abundant vegetation. This period, known as the Green Sahara or the African Humid Period, represents a time in history when the desert transformed into a fertile land capable of supporting both human civilizations and diverse wildlife. This dramatic shift, which occurred multiple times over the past few 100,000 years, is one of the most fascinating natural phenomena in Earth's history. When and why did the Sahara turn green? The Green Sahara period was primarily driven by changes in Earth's orbit and axial tilt, known as Milankovitch cycles. These cycles affect the amount of solar energy reaching different parts of the planet, leading to periodic climate shifts. Every 20,000 to 25,000 years, Africa experiences increased monsoon rains due to changes in the way sunlight influences ocean currents and atmospheric pressure. During these wet phases, rain clouds that usually remain confined to the tropics extend northward into the Sahara, transforming it into a lush, habitable region. Scientific evidence suggests that the last major Green Sahara phase occurred between 14,000 and 5,000 years ago, peaking around 8,000 years ago. During this time, vast lakes and rivers formed, some of which were larger than today's Great Lakes. Among these was Lake Mega Chad, a massive body of water that covered parts of modern-day Chad, Niger, Nigeria, and Cameroon. At its peak, it was one of the largest lakes in the world, spanning over 400,000 square kilometers, 154,000 square miles, an area larger than Germany. Flourishing life in the Green Sahara. With the arrival of abundant water, the Sahara became home to a rich variety of plants and animals. Dense grasslands stretched across the region, attracting herds of elephants, giraffes, antelopes, hippopotamuses, and even crocodiles. Fossil evidence and ancient rock paintings found in places like Tassili Eniger in Algeria and the Caucasus Mountains in Libya depict these animals, proving that the Sahara once sustained an environment similar to the modern African savannas. In addition to wildlife, the Green Sahara was home to early human settlements. Archaeological discoveries show that people not only survived but thrived in this fertile landscape. Communities engaged in fishing, farming, and herding cattle, as evidenced by the remains of fishing tools, pottery, and domesticated animal bones. Some of the earliest evidence of cattle domestication in Africa dates back to this period, suggesting that pastoral societies were well established before the Sahara turned back into a desert. The end of the Green Sahara. However, this paradise was not to last. As Earth's orbit continued to change, the monsoon rains gradually weakened and the desertification process began. By around 5,000 years ago, the lush Sahara started drying up again, forcing people and animals to migrate toward more hospitable regions, such as the Nile Valley and West Africa. This migration contributed to the rise of ancient civilizations, including the early societies along the Nile River, where agriculture and permanent settlements flourished. Despite its current harsh conditions, the Sahara still holds evidence of its green past. Satellite images reveal the dry beds of ancient rivers and lakes, while deep underground reservoirs of freshwater, known as fossil aquifers, remain hidden beneath the desert. These remnants serve as a reminder that the Sahara's landscape is ever-changing and could, one day in the distant future, become green again. The Sahara, though now an extreme and seemingly inhospitable desert, was once home to thriving human communities. Archaeological evidence suggests that for thousands of years, the region supported flourishing settlements, rich cultures, and sophisticated ways of life. The ancient inhabitants of the Sahara lived in an environment vastly different from the arid landscape we see today. Rivers, lakes, and fertile grasslands provided the necessary resources for survival, allowing human populations to grow, adapt, and develop unique traditions. Early human presence in the Sahara. The story of human habitation in the Sahara stretches back tens of thousands of years. Some of the earliest evidence of human presence comes from stone tools, fossils, and rock shelters found across the desert. Fossilized human remains discovered in regions such as Niger, Libya, Algeria, and Sudan suggest that humans lived in the Sahara as early as 100,000 years ago during periods when the climate was more favorable. During the Green Sahara period, between 14,000 and 5,000 years ago, human settlements flourished. This period coincided with abundant rainfall, which transformed the desert into a lush landscape filled with lakes and rivers. Archaeologists have unearthed settlements where people engaged in fishing, hunting, and farming, indicating that life in the Sahara was not only possible but prosperous. Art and culture of the ancient Sahara. One of the most remarkable pieces of evidence of ancient human habitation in the Sahara is its rock art. Throughout the region, in places like Tassili Enager in Algeria, the Akakis Mountains in Libya, and the Enedi Plateau in Chad, thousands of petroglyphs, rock engravings, and cave paintings have been found. These artworks depict a time when the Sahara was alive with human activity and diverse wildlife. The rock paintings reveal scenes of daily life, including hunting, dancing, social gatherings, and even religious rituals. They also provide clear evidence of a once thriving ecosystem, portraying animals such as elephants, giraffes, antelopes, hippos, and even crocodiles, all of which could not survive in the Sahara's present conditions. Some of these paintings are estimated to be over 10,000 years old, offering a direct glimpse into the lives of the Sahara's ancient inhabitants, the first farmers and cattle herders. As the Sahara became more hospitable during the Green Sahara period, its inhabitants transitioned from being hunter-gatherers to herders and early farmers. Archaeological findings suggest that these communities domesticated cattle, goats, and sheep, which allowed them to settle in one place for extended periods. Evidence of early agriculture has also been found, with some communities growing grains, legumes, and other crops near lakes and rivers. This shift to farming and animal domestication marks an important milestone in human history, as it allowed for more permanent settlements and social organization. Tools, pottery, and technology. The ancient people of the Sahara were not only skilled at survival but also developed advanced tools and artifacts. Archaeologists have discovered stone tools, grinding stones, fishing hooks, and spears, all of which indicate a well-adapted lifestyle suited to their environment. Pottery shards found at various sites further suggest that these people stored and cooked food, a sign of growing cultural sophistication. The development of pottery, in particular, is significant because it indicates a shift from a purely nomadic lifestyle to more settled living. Some of the earliest ceramic vessels in Africa, dating back over 9,000 years, were found in the Sahara, further proving the ingenuity of its ancient inhabitants. Burial sites and spiritual beliefs. Another important discovery in the Sahara is the presence of burial sites. These ancient graves provide clues about the spiritual and social lives of the people who once lived there. Some graves contain carefully arranged skeletons, adorned with ornaments, beads, and weapons, suggesting a belief in an afterlife. One of the most famous burial sites is the Gabero Cemetery in Niger, where skeletons of early Saharan inhabitants dating back 10,000 years were discovered. The positioning of the bodies, as well as the presence of personal belongings in the graves, indicates that these early Saharan societies had rituals, traditions, and possibly a complex belief system about life and death. The decline of human settlements. As the climate began to change around 5,000 years ago, the Sahara slowly started turning back into a desert. The once abundant rivers and lakes dried up, making survival increasingly difficult. As a result, many of the Sahara's ancient inhabitants were forced to migrate to more hospitable areas, such as the Nile Valley, West Africa, and the Sahel region. This migration played a crucial role in shaping African civilizations. Many of the skills and knowledge developed in the Sahara, such as animal domestication, farming techniques, and cultural traditions, were carried to other parts of the continent, influencing the development of later societies. The Sahara, despite its vast and seemingly inhospitable nature, has long played a crucial role in shaping human history. Far from being an impassable wasteland, it has been a bridge between civilizations, connecting the cultures of North Africa, West Africa, and the Mediterranean. For thousands of years, the Sahara was not only home to ancient communities, but also a major center for trade, travel, and cultural exchange. The earliest civilizations of the Sahara. Before the Sahara became the arid desert we see today, it was home to thriving human settlements that laid the foundations for later civilizations. Some of the earliest known societies in the region developed along the edges of ancient rivers and lakes, which allowed for fishing, farming, and the domestication of animals. One of the earliest known cultures was the Tenerian people, who lived around 7,000 years ago in what is now Niger. Archaeologists have discovered their burial sites at Gabbero, revealing that they practiced elaborate funerary rituals. These people were skilled at fishing and hunting, as shown by the remains of harpoons, fishhooks, and pottery found at their sites. As the Sahara started drying up around 5,000 years ago, many of these early populations migrated to more hospitable areas, particularly toward the Nile Valley, the Sahel, and West Africa. This migration contributed to the rise of great civilizations, including ancient Egypt, Nubia, and later the kingdoms of West Africa, which would come to dominate the trans-Saharan trade. The birth of trans-Saharan trade. With the rise of powerful kingdoms and empires in West Africa, North Africa, and the Mediterranean, the Sahara became a key trade corridor. Even though the desert presented extreme challenges, including scorching heat and vast stretches of barren land, ancient traders devised ways to cross it efficiently. One of the greatest innovations that made Saharan trade possible was the domestication of the camel. By around 300 CE, camels had replaced horses and donkeys as the primary means of transportation across the desert. These animals, known as the ships of the desert, could withstand harsh conditions, survive without water for days, and carry heavy loads. Their introduction revolutionized trans-Saharan trade, allowing for the movement of goods, people, and ideas across vast distances. The great trade routes of the Sahara. By the 7th and 8th centuries CE, trade routes crisscrossed the Sahara, linking West Africa with the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and beyond. The most significant of these routes connected cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Jen in West Africa to Fez, Marrakesh, Tunis, Cairo, and Tripoli in North Africa. The trans-Saharan trade was dominated by several key commodities. Gold. The gold mines of West Africa, particularly in present-day Mali and Ghana, produced vast quantities of gold, making the region one of the wealthiest in the world. Much of this gold ended up in North Africa and Europe, fueling economic growth and even influencing global trade. Salt. While gold was valuable in the north, salt was equally precious in the south. Mined in places like the Saharan salt mines of Tagaza and Tadeni, modern-day Mali, salt was essential for preserving food and maintaining health. Caravans transported massive slabs of salt across the desert to trade for gold, making this exchange one of the most important in history. Slaves. Unfortunately, the trans-Saharan trade also included the movement of enslaved people. Many were taken from sub-Saharan Africa and sold in North Africa and Middle East, where they worked in households, armies, and other roles. Ivory, textiles, and spices. The trade routes also carried ivory, leather goods, and fine textiles from West Africa to the Mediterranean, while silks, ceramics, and spices flowed southward from the Middle East and North Africa. These trade routes not only brought economic prosperity, but also helped spread culture, religion, and technology between civilizations. The influence of Islam and the Sahara. The expansion of Islam in North Africa during the 7th and 8th centuries CE had a profound impact on trans-Saharan trade. Muslim traders and scholars traveled across the desert, spreading Islamic teachings, Arabic writing, and new ideas in architecture, science, and governance. Many of the great West African empires, such as the Ghana Empire, 4th to 11th century, the Mali Empire, 13th to 16th century, and the Songhai Empire, 15th to 16th century, adopted Islam, integrating it into their legal and political systems. Timbuktu, in particular, became a major center of Islamic learning, with scholars and students coming from all over the Muslim world to study at the legendary University of Sankore. With Islam came a new level of organization and trade. Muslim merchants formed trade guilds and networks that connected different parts of the Sahara, making commerce more efficient and reliable. Arabic became the common language of trade, helping facilitate communication across different cultures and regions. The decline of trans-Saharan trade. For centuries, the Sahara remained one of the most important trade corridors in the world. However, with the arrival of European maritime trade in the 15th and 16th centuries, trans-Saharan trade began to decline. When Portuguese and Spanish explorers started trading directly with West African coastal regions, the need for long and dangerous desert crossings diminished. By the 19th century, the construction of new colonial roads, railways, and modern trade routes further reduced the importance of the Sahara as a commercial hub. However, remnants of this ancient trade system still exist today, as camel caravans still cross the desert in some regions, keeping the legacy of trans-Saharan commerce alive. The Sahara Desert, the world's largest hot desert, has not always been the vast, arid landscape we see today. Over thousands and even millions of years, the Sahara has undergone significant climate changes, alternating between fertile grasslands and barren wasteland. These fluctuations have been driven by a combination of natural cycles, shifts in Earth's orbit, atmospheric changes, and monsoon patterns. Understanding these climate shifts is crucial for unraveling the Sahara's deep history and predicting its future transformations. The role of Earth's orbit in Sahara's climate cycles. One of the primary drivers of the Sahara's fluctuating climate is Earth's Milankovitch cycles, which describe how variations in Earth's orbit and axial tilt influence global climate over thousands of years. These cycles impact the amount of sunlight different regions receive, directly affecting weather patterns and precipitation levels. Roughly every 20,000 to 25,000 years, changes in Earth's axial tilt and orbit alter the strength of the West African monsoon, the system responsible for bringing rainfall to the region. When these cycles favor increased monsoon activity, the Sahara transforms into a lush, green savanna capable of supporting rivers, lakes, vegetation, and human civilizations. When the cycles shift again, rainfall decreases, leading to gradual desertification, where fertile lands dry up and turn into sand dunes. The last green Sahara period. The most recent significant wet phase, known as the African humid period, occurred between 14,000 and 5,000 years ago. During this time, the Sahara was a vast grassland, dotted with large lakes and flowing rivers. Fossil evidence suggests that this environment supported a wide variety of animals, including elephants, giraffes, hippos, and even crocodiles, animals that could not survive in today's harsh desert conditions. Human populations flourished during this period, establishing permanent settlements and engaging in activities like farming, fishing, and animal domestication. The Sahara was home to early cultures that created stunning rock art, which provides clear evidence of a once thriving ecosystem. The paintings found in places like Tassili Eniger in Algeria and the Akakis Mountains in Libya depict scenes of people herding cattle, fishing, and hunting, a stark contrast to the barren desert that exists today. However, around 5,000 years ago, the wet period began to end as monsoon patterns weakened and rainfall declined. The lakes and rivers gradually dried up, forcing people and animals to migrate to more hospitable regions, such as the Nile Valley, the Sahel, and West Africa. This transition was slow but inevitable, shaping the development of civilizations that thrived along the edges of the desert. Ancient lake systems and hidden rivers. Despite its current dry state, evidence of the Sahara's watery past remains hidden beneath its sands. Satellite images and geological surveys have revealed the existence of ancient riverbeds and massive underground aquifers, remnants of a time when water flowed freely across the region. One of the most famous examples is the discovery of the Tamanrasset River system, an ancient river that once flowed across Algeria and into the Atlantic Ocean. Though now buried under sand, this river is believed to have been one of the longest in Africa, rivaling the Nile in size and importance. Another remarkable discovery is Lake Mega Chad, which once covered an area of over 400,000 square kilometers, 154,000 square miles, making it larger than today's Caspian Sea. As the climate dried, this massive lake shrank dramatically, leaving behind Lake Chad, which is now just a fraction of its former size. The shrinking of these water bodies contributed to the loss of fertile land and the expansion of desert conditions. The Sahara's expansion and modern desertification. While natural climate cycles have played a key role in shaping the Sahara, human activities and global climate change are now accelerating its expansion. Over the past century, scientists have observed an increase in desertification, the process by which fertile land turns into desert due to factors like deforestation, overgrazing, and poor land management. In some areas, the desert is expanding southward into the Sahel region, a semi-arid zone that separates the Sahara from the savannas of West Africa. This has serious consequences for local populations, as it reduces agricultural land, leads to water shortages, and forces communities to migrate in search of better living conditions. Climate models suggest that rising global temperatures and changing rainfall patterns could further alter the Sahara's climate in the coming decades. Some researchers believe that increased CO2 levels in the atmosphere could strengthen the African monsoon, potentially triggering another green Sahara period in the distant future. Others warn that ongoing deforestation and land degradation could worsen desertification, making the Sahara's harsh conditions even more extreme. Beneath the vast, sun-scorched dunes of the Sahara lies one of its greatest secrets: massive reserves of underground water. Though the desert appears dry and lifeless on the surface, deep below, vast aquifers and hidden river systems store water from ancient times. These underground reservoirs, known as fossil aquifers, were formed thousands or even millions of years ago when the Sahara was lush and filled with flowing rivers. Today, these hidden water sources continue to play a crucial role in sustaining life in and around the desert, offering a glimpse into its wetter past and the potential for future development. The formation of Sahara's fossil aquifers. Fossil aquifers are underground reservoirs that contain water trapped during previous climatic periods when the Sahara was much wetter. These vast underground lakes were formed during the African humid periods, the last of which occurred between 14,000 and 5,000 years ago. During these times, heavy rains and monsoons saturated the land, filling underground rock layers with fresh water. As the Sahara gradually dried up, the surface rivers and lakes disappeared, but much of the water remained trapped in porous rock layers deep below the surface. Unlike modern groundwater sources, which are replenished by rainfall, fossil aquifers are non-renewable, meaning they do not naturally recharge at a significant rate in today's arid climate. The water in these aquifers is often thousands or even millions of years old, preserved in geological formations known as sandstone basins. Because they do not receive new water from rainfall, excessive extraction can lead to depletion, making their management crucial for the future. The major aquifer systems of the Sahara. There are several large fossil aquifers beneath the Sahara, covering vast areas across multiple countries. Some of the most important include the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer System, NSES, one of the largest fossil aquifers in the world, stretching beneath Egypt, Libya, Chad, and Sudan. It contains an estimated 150,000 cubic kilometers of water, much of it dating back over 30,000 years. This aquifer has been tapped for drinking water, irrigation, and large-scale agricultural projects. The Northwestern Sahara Aquifer System, NWSES, extending across Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya, this aquifer holds around 60,000 cubic kilometers of water. It supports many desert communities, including the famous oases of the Sahara, where underground water allows palm trees and crops to grow in an otherwise harsh environment. The Eulamedan Aquifer System, IS, located beneath Mali, Niger, Nigeria, and parts of Algeria, this aquifer is a vital source of water for millions of people in the Sahel region. Unlike some other fossil aquifers, parts of the Eulamedan system still receive some recharge from seasonal rainfall, making it a valuable but delicate water source. The Todini-Tainsraft Basin, found in Mali, Mauritania, and Algeria, this aquifer system holds significant water reserves but is less explored than others due to its remote location. Oases, the visible evidence of underground water. While most of the Sahara's underground water remains hidden, some of it reaches the surface in the form of oases. These are isolated pockets of vegetation where underground water naturally emerges or can be accessed through wells. Oases have been lifelines for human settlements and trade routes for thousands of years, allowing civilizations to thrive even in the harshest conditions. Some of the most famous oases in the Sahara include Siwa Oasis, Egypt, a historic settlement known for its ancient ruins, including the Temple of the Oracle, where Alexander the Great once sought guidance. Gatums, Libya, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, often called the Pearl of the Desert, featuring mud brick houses that have sustained life for centuries. Tafwalt, Morocco, one of the largest oases in the world, famous for its date palm groves and historical significance in trans-Saharan trade. Timbuktu, Algeria, a stunning red-colored oasis town known for its traditional architecture and strategic location along ancient caravan routes. These oases provide drinking water, support agriculture, and sustain local communities, demonstrating the ongoing importance of the Sahara's underground water reserves. Modern use of Sahara's underground water. In recent decades, many North African countries have developed projects to tap into the Sahara's deep fossil aquifers for drinking water and agriculture. Some of the most ambitious water projects include the Great Man-Made River Project, Libya, one of the largest engineering projects in history. This network of underground pipelines transports water from the Nubian sandstone aquifer to cities and farms across Libya. Built under the leadership of Muammar Gaddafi, the project provides water to millions of people, but concerns remain about the long-term sustainability of the aquifer. Agricultural irrigation in Egypt. Large-scale farming projects in Egypt's western desert rely on underground water from the Nubian aquifer. While these projects help increase food production, scientists warn that excessive water extraction could deplete reserves over time. Oasis farming in Algeria and Morocco. Many oasis communities use traditional irrigation techniques, such as canets, underground water channels, and fogaras, gravity-fed irrigation systems, to distribute water efficiently. These ancient methods help sustain farming while preserving limited water resources. Challenges and the future of Sahara's water. While the Sahara's underground water is a valuable resource, its long-term use faces several challenges. Overextraction. Since fossil aquifers are not replenished by rainfall, excessive pumping can drain these reserves permanently, leaving communities without water in the future. Water salinity. Some ancient aquifers contain water that has become salty over time, making it difficult to use for drinking or irrigation without costly desalination. Climate change. Rising global temperatures could further stress water resources by increasing evaporation and desertification, making it harder to sustain life in the region. Geopolitical tensions. Since many aquifers cross national borders, disagreements over water rights and access could lead to conflicts between neighboring countries. Despite these challenges, advancements in water conservation, desalination technology, and sustainable irrigation methods could help extend the life of these hidden water reserves. If managed carefully, the Sahara's underground water could continue to support future generations, just as it has sustained life in the desert for thousands of years. Despite its harsh climate and seemingly endless dunes, the Sahara Desert has been home to human societies for tens of thousands of years. The people who have lived in this vast and unforgiving landscape have adapted in remarkable ways, developing unique cultures, traditions, and survival techniques that continue to define their way of life today. From the early hunter-gatherers and pastoralist communities to the great desert empires and modern nomads, the Sahara's human history is as rich and dynamic as the shifting sands themselves. The earliest inhabitants of the Sahara. Before the Sahara became the arid desert we see today, it was a lush and fertile land teeming with wildlife and abundant vegetation. Early humans, including some of our ancestors, thrived in this environment. Archaeological evidence suggests that people lived in the Sahara as far back as 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, during the last African humid period, when the desert was covered with lakes, rivers, and grasslands. These early inhabitants were hunter-gatherers, relying on fishing, hunting large animals, and foraging for wild plants. Some of the most remarkable evidence of their existence comes from prehistoric rock art sites, such as Tassili Enajur in Algeria, the Akakis Mountains in Libya, and the Enedi Plateau in Chad. These paintings and engravings depict scenes of daily life, including hunting, fishing, dancing, and even religious rituals, providing a glimpse into the lives of these ancient people. As the Sahara began to dry up around 5000 BC, many communities adapted by domesticating animals like cattle, sheep, and goats. These early pastoralists developed a nomadic lifestyle, moving their herds in search of water and grazing land. Others migrated to more hospitable areas, such as the Nile Valley, the Sahel, and West Africa, contributing to the rise of great civilizations like ancient Egypt, Nubia, and the later West African empires. The rise of nomadic and sedentary societies. As desertification intensified, the Sahara became dominated by nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes who developed specialized survival skills suited to the extreme conditions. These communities relied on a combination of herding, trade, and seasonal migration to sustain themselves. Over time, distinct ethnic groups and cultural identities emerged, many of which still exist today. Among the most prominent nomadic groups of the Sahara are the Tuareg, often referred to as the blue people of the desert due to their indigo-dyed clothing. The Tuareg are one of the most famous Saharan peoples. They are skilled camel herders and traders, historically controlling key trans-Saharan trade routes. Their society is traditionally matrilineal, meaning lineage and inheritance are traced through the mother's side. The Berbers, Amazigh, an indigenous North African people, the Berbers have lived in the Sahara for thousands of years. Some Berber groups, like the Zenaga and Sinhaja, played crucial roles in the trans-Saharan gold and salt trade. Many Berbers also settled in oasis towns, establishing important trade hubs. The Moors, a mix of Arab and Berber ancestry. The Moors are found primarily in Mauritania, Western Sahara, and parts of Mali and Niger. They have historically been involved in trade, herding, and governance in the desert region. The Tubu, a resilient and resourceful people inhabiting the Central Sahara, particularly in Chad, Niger, and Libya. The Tubu are known for their deep knowledge of desert navigation, which has allowed them to thrive in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. Although many Saharan tribes maintained a nomadic way of life, others settled in oasis towns and trading centers where they cultivated date palms, wheat, and other crops using advanced irrigation techniques. Some of the most well-known historical Saharan cities include Timbuktu, Gao, Gatams, and Siwa, which became centers of trade, learning, and culture. The role of the Sahara in trade and cultural exchange. For centuries, the Sahara was not a barrier but a highway of commerce and communication, connecting sub-Saharan Africa with North Africa, the Mediterranean, and the Middle East. The trans-Saharan trade routes, developed around 300 CE, were dominated by camel caravans, which transported gold, salt, ivory, textiles, and other goods across vast distances. The people of the Sahara played a key role in facilitating this trade. Tuareg and Berber merchants acted as middlemen, guiding caravans across the desert and ensuring safe passage between markets. This exchange not only brought economic prosperity, but also spread Islam, Arabic writing, and scientific knowledge throughout the region. Many Saharan societies adopted Islamic traditions while maintaining their unique cultural identities, blending influences from different civilizations. During the height of the Mali and Songhai empires, 13th to 16th centuries, cities like Timbuktu and Jen became renowned for their wealth and learning, attracting scholars, traders, and travelers from across the Islamic world. The desert was not a place of isolation, but a vibrant network of human interaction and intellectual exchange. Challenges and changes in the modern era. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the traditional ways of life in the Sahara have been increasingly challenged by modernization, climate change, and geopolitical conflicts. Many nomadic groups have faced pressure to settle in permanent communities due to factors such as desertification. As the Sahara continues to expand southward, grazing lands and water sources are disappearing, making traditional herding more difficult. Urbanization. Many young people from nomadic families are migrating to cities in search of education, jobs, and healthcare, leading to a decline in traditional lifestyles. Political instability. The Sahara spans multiple countries, some of which have experienced conflicts, border disputes, and insurgencies, affecting the movement and security of its people. Modern transportation and trade. With the decline of camel caravans and the rise of motorized transport, many old trade routes have lost their significance, forcing communities to adapt to new economic realities. Despite these challenges, the people of the Sahara have shown remarkable resilience. Many continue to practice traditional crafts, music, and storytelling, preserving their cultural heritage while adapting to modern changes. Some nomadic groups still travel with their herds, using solar panels and satellite phones alongside ancient navigation techniques. Others have turned to tourism, offering visitors a chance to experience desert treks, Tuareg festivals, and oasis hospitality. In recent years, efforts have been made to protect and sustain the unique cultures of the Sahara. Governments and international organizations are working to combat desertification, support local economies, and preserve historical sites. The Sahara remains home to some of the most ancient and enduring societies on Earth, a testament to the human ability to survive and thrive in even the most extreme environments. The Sahara Desert, despite its harsh and seemingly inhospitable landscape, was once one of the world's most significant commercial highways. For centuries, the trans-Saharan trade connected sub-Saharan Africa with North Africa, the Mediterranean, and the Middle East, allowing goods, ideas, and cultures to flow across vast distances. This trade network was not just an exchange of commodities. It shaped civilizations, influenced politics, and played a crucial role in the spread of religions, languages, and technologies. Origins of the trans-Saharan trade. The roots of trans-Saharan trade stretch back thousands of years. Early evidence suggests that hunter-gatherers and pastoralists moved across the Sahara even before it became a desert, exchanging goods and knowledge between regions. However, large-scale trade networks truly began to flourish between 300 BCE and 500 CE, as the demand for resources like gold, salt, and slaves increased across North Africa and beyond. At the heart of this commercial system was the introduction of the camel, believed to have been brought to North Africa from the Arabian Peninsula around the 3rd century CE. Unlike horses and donkeys, camels were uniquely suited to long desert journeys, capable of surviving without water for days, withstanding extreme temperatures, and carrying heavy loads. The Tuareg, Berber, and Arab traders quickly adapted to using camels, forming massive caravans that could include thousands of animals and people traveling together for safety and efficiency. Key goods traded across the Sahara. The trans-Saharan trade was built on the exchange of valuable and scarce resources, each vital to different regions. Some of the most sought-after goods included gold. West Africa, particularly in regions like Ghana, Mali, and later Songhai, was incredibly rich in gold. The gold fields of Bambuk, Bure, and Wangara supplied much of the world's gold during the medieval period. North African and Middle Eastern traders sought West African gold in exchange for salt and other commodities. Salt. While gold was abundant in West Africa, salt was even more valuable in the desert regions. Mined in places like Tagaza and Tedeni in modern-day Mali, salt was transported in large slabs and traded for gold, food, and textiles. Salt was essential for preserving food and maintaining health in hot climates. Slaves. The trans-Saharan slave trade was another major aspect of commerce. Many African states raided rival communities or sold war captives into slavery. Enslaved individuals were taken northward to serve as soldiers, laborers, concubines, or even government officials in places like North Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Europe. Textiles and manufactured goods, fine fabrics, particularly from Egypt and the Middle East, were highly prized in West Africa. In return, Saharan traders brought exotic goods like African ivory, ostrich feathers, kola nuts, and spices to Mediterranean markets. Horses and weapons. North African traders also supplied West African kingdoms with horses, swords, and firearms, which played a crucial role in military conflicts and governance. The introduction of horses transformed the warfare and ruling systems of empires like Mali and Songhai. Major trade routes and centers. The trans-Saharan trade was supported by a network of well-established routes and trading hubs where merchants could rest, exchange goods, and negotiate deals. Some of the most important cities and routes included Timbuktu, Mali, a major center of trade, learning, and Islamic scholarship. Timbuktu became famous for its libraries, universities, and markets. Gao, Mali/Niger. Another key trading city on the Niger River, Gao served as a gateway between Saharan traders and the West African interior. Kano, Nigeria. Part of the Hausa city-state network, Kano became a significant hub for merchants trading textiles, leather goods, and agricultural products. Ghadames, Libya. A crucial oasis town that connected North Africa to the southern trade routes, Ghadames was a stopping point for camel caravans heading toward the Sahel. Walata and Shingeti, Mauritania. These towns were important way stations for caravans moving across the Western Sahara. Shingeti, in particular, became a center of Islamic scholarship, cultural and religious influence of trans-Saharan trade. Trade was not just about material wealth. It also facilitated the exchange of ideas, religion, and culture. One of the most profound impacts of trans-Saharan trade was the spread of Islam into West Africa. Islamic merchants, scholars, and missionaries traveled along the trade routes, introducing Islamic teachings, Arabic script, and Islamic architecture to local societies. West African rulers, such as Mansa Musa of Mali, embraced Islam, blending it with local traditions to create unique religious and cultural practices. Timbuktu's famous Sankore University became a leading center for Islamic learning, attracting scholars from across the Islamic world. Arabic became the language of trade, governance, and scholarship, influencing local languages like Hausa, Tuareg, and Songhai. Islamic architecture, seen in mosques, palaces, and libraries, was introduced to cities throughout the region, further demonstrating the deep cultural exchange facilitated by trade. The decline of trans-Saharan trade. Despite its prosperity for centuries, the trans-Saharan trade eventually declined due to several key factors. The rise of Atlantic trade, 15th to 17th century. The Portuguese and other European powers began establishing direct maritime trade routes to West Africa, bypassing the Sahara entirely. Coastal ports like Elmina and Lagos became the new centers of commerce. Though the Sahara Desert is often viewed as a harsh and isolating barrier, history tells a different story. The Sahara was not a void separating civilizations, but a dynamic crossroads that shaped the growth of ancient and medieval societies in Africa and beyond. Across its vast and seemingly endless expanse, numerous civilizations, kingdoms, and empires thrived, adapted, and interacted, leaving behind a lasting impact on history. From the prehistoric cultures of the Green Sahara to the powerful medieval empires that controlled trade and learning, the Sahara played a crucial role in human civilization. Its influence stretched far beyond its sandy dunes, shaping the development of societies in North Africa, West Africa, and even Europe and the Middle East. The Green Sahara, early civilizations before desertification. Long before the Sahara became the world's largest hot desert, it was a fertile region teeming with lakes, rivers, and vegetation. This period, known as the African Humid Period, circa 10,000 BC, 3000 BC, allowed human communities to flourish. Archaeological discoveries suggest that early civilizations thrived in what is now the Sahara, leaving behind artifacts, burial sites, and remarkable rock art that depict a landscape very different from today's desert. One of the most famous examples of this early civilization is found in Tassili-en-Niger in Algeria, where ancient rock paintings depict hunting scenes, cattle herding, and even large gatherings of people, suggesting a thriving, organized society. These paintings are evidence of an early culture that existed long before the desertification of the region. As the Sahara gradually dried up around 5000 to 3000 BC, many of its inhabitants migrated toward the Nile Valley, West Africa, and the Sahel, contributing to the rise of great civilizations such as ancient Egypt, Nubia, and the early West African cultures. However, some groups adapted to the harsher conditions, developing the nomadic lifestyles that still persist today. The Sahara and the rise of ancient Egypt and Nubia. One of the most significant civilizations influenced by the Sahara was ancient Egypt. The Nile Valley, which runs along the eastern edge of the Sahara, became a center of civilization largely due to the migration of people fleeing the desertification of the Sahara. These early settlers brought knowledge of agriculture, livestock herding, and even early religious beliefs. The Sahara was not a barrier to Egypt, it was a gateway. Egyptian trade routes extended deep into the desert, reaching as far as modern-day Sudan, Chad, and Libya. Egyptian records mention expeditions into the Sahara to acquire gold, exotic animals, and incense. The use of desert caravans and oases allowed contact between the Nile and the interior of Africa. South of Egypt, the kingdom of Nubia, Kush, flourished in what is now Sudan. Like Egypt, Nubia was deeply connected to the Sahara. The Nubians controlled trade routes that passed through the desert, linking sub-Saharan Africa to North Africa and the Mediterranean. The Nubians were skilled in desert survival, using camel and donkey caravans to navigate the harsh terrain. The Great Berber and Garamantian civilization. One of the earliest recorded Saharan civilizations was the Garamantes, an ancient Berber kingdom that thrived in what is now southern Libya from around 1000 BC to 700 CE. The Garamantes were masters of desert agriculture, using a sophisticated underground irrigation system known as canets or fogaras to extract water from deep underground aquifers. The Garamantes built fortified cities, farms, and trade centers, making them one of the dominant powers in the central Sahara. They engaged in trade with Carthage, Rome, and sub-Saharan Africa, exchanging goods such as salt, gold, and slaves. Despite the harsh environment, they managed to create a prosperous civilization that defied the challenges of the desert. The role of the Sahara in the great West African empires. While civilizations in North Africa adapted to the Sahara, some of the greatest medieval empires of West Africa also relied on the desert for their economic and political strength. The Ghana Empire, 4th to 11th century CE, Mali Empire, 13th to 16th century CE, and Songhai Empire, 15th to 16th century CE, all controlled key sections of the trans-Saharan trade routes, making them wealthy and powerful. The Ghana Empire, often called the Land of Gold, Ghana controlled gold mines in modern-day Mali and Senegal. By taxing trade caravans traveling through the Sahara, Ghana's rulers amassed enormous wealth. The Mali Empire, perhaps the most famous ruler of Mali, Mansa Musa, R. 1312 to 1337 CE, is said to have been the wealthiest person in history. His legendary pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, where he distributed gold along the way, was made possible by the control of Saharan trade routes. Mali's capital, Timbuktu, became a global center of learning and commerce, attracting scholars, traders, and architects from across the Islamic world. The Songhai Empire, the last great medieval empire of West Africa, Songhai, expanded its control over Saharan trade, particularly in salt, gold, and slaves. Under rulers like Sunni Ali and Askia Muhammad, Songhai established a powerful military and administrative system that relied on the wealth generated from trans-Saharan trade. Islamic influence and intellectual centers in the Sahara. The arrival of Islam in the 7th and 8th centuries CE profoundly transformed the Sahara. Arab and Berber traders introduced Islam to the region, and by the 10th century, many Saharan and Sahelian communities had embraced the new faith. Alongside religion came Arabic writing, Islamic scholarship, and architectural innovations that shaped cities and governance in the region. One of the most significant impacts of Saharan trade was the establishment of Islamic learning centers in desert cities. Timbuktu, Mali. Home to the Sankore University, Timbuktu became one of the most prestigious Islamic intellectual hubs in Africa. Scholars, mathematicians, and religious leaders gathered to study, teach, and write books on a wide range of subjects. Shingeti, Mauritania. Known as the City of Libraries, Shingeti housed thousands of Islamic manuscripts and became a center for religious and legal studies. Walata, Mauritania, and Agadez, Niger. These cities also became key centers of Islamic culture and scholarship, serving as important waypoints for trans-Saharan travelers and merchants. The Sahara was not simply a land of isolation, it was a corridor of knowledge and faith, linking Africa with the wider Islamic world. The Sahara's influence on Mediterranean and European civilizations. The wealth and resources of the Sahara also had far-reaching effects on Mediterranean and European civilizations. North African cities such as Carthage, Alexandria, and later Fez and Marrakesh benefited from Saharan trade, and many Mediterranean powers, including the Romans and the Arabs, sought control over its lucrative trade routes. During the Roman era, Saharan salt, gold, and exotic animals were highly valued in Europe. Romans even established forts and settlements along the desert's edge, trying to secure access to trade. Later, during the Islamic Golden Age, 8th to 14th century CE, North African scholars, scientists, and merchants played a crucial role in transmitting knowledge from Africa to Europe, influencing fields such as medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. The Sahara Desert, a vast and ancient landscape, has undergone dramatic transformations over thousands of years. Once a fertile, green expanse teeming with life, it evolved into the arid desert we know today. However, the changes in the Sahara did not stop in ancient times. Modern challenges, climate shifts, and human activity continue to reshape this massive ecosystem. From desertification and climate change to political instability and resource exploitation, the Sahara faces significant obstacles in the present and future. Climate change and the expanding desert. One of the most pressing challenges facing the Sahara today is climate change and desertification. Although the Sahara has naturally fluctuated between wet and dry periods over millennia, recent studies suggest that human-induced climate change is accelerating desert expansion, affecting millions of people living on its edges. The process of desertification, in which fertile land gradually turns into desert due to drought, deforestation, and poor land management, is particularly severe in the Sahel region, the semi-arid belt that borders the southern edge of the Sahara. Some key consequences include loss of arable land. Farmers in countries such as Mali, Niger, Chad, and Sudan are seeing their lands dry up, reducing agricultural output and threatening food security. Water scarcity. The Sahara is already one of the driest places on Earth, and water sources like Lake Chad, once one of Africa's largest lakes, have dramatically shrunk due to climate change and overuse. Increased sandstorms and droughts. Changing weather patterns have led to longer droughts and more frequent sandstorms, making life harder for people and animals alike. Some scientists believe that the Sahara could undergo another greening period if global temperatures rise, leading to increased rainfall. However, whether this would happen in a way beneficial to local populations remains uncertain. Human activity and environmental degradation. In addition to climate change, human activities have played a role in worsening environmental challenges in the Sahara. Some of the key issues include deforestation and overgrazing. Nomadic and settled communities in and around the Sahara rely on livestock and agriculture. However, overgrazing by animals and cutting down trees for firewood has contributed to soil erosion, accelerating desertification. Water overuse and mismanagement. In several countries, underground aquifers and oases are being depleted faster than they can be replenished. This is particularly true in Libya, Algeria, and Egypt, where large-scale irrigation projects have drained underground water reserves. Mining and resource extraction. The Sahara is rich in natural resources such as oil, gas, uranium, and precious metals. While mining provides economic benefits, it also causes pollution, habitat destruction, and displacement of local communities. Uncontrolled urbanization. In some parts of the Sahara, expanding towns and cities are consuming more resources than can be sustained, putting further pressure on the fragile desert ecosystem. Political instability and conflict in the Sahara. The Sahara spans over 10 countries, many of which face political instability, ethnic conflicts, and border disputes. The vastness and remoteness of the desert make it difficult for governments to maintain control, enforce laws, or provide services to remote communities. Armed conflicts and insurgencies. The Sahara has become a battleground for various militant groups, including terrorist organizations and rebel factions operating in Mali, Niger, Libya, and Chad. These conflicts have disrupted trade routes and made travel more dangerous. Smuggling and illegal activities. The desert's isolation has made it a hub for drug trafficking, human smuggling, and arms dealing, leading to security concerns for governments and local populations. Migration and refugee crises. Due to climate change, conflict, and poverty, many people from the Sahel region and West Africa attempt to cross the Sahara in hopes of reaching Europe. However, this journey is dangerous, with thousands of migrants dying each year from dehydration, violence, or abandonment in the desert. Efforts to combat desertification and revitalize the Sahara. Despite these challenges, many governments, organizations, and scientists are working on solutions to protect the Sahara and its surrounding regions. Some major initiatives include the Great Green Wall Project. One of the most ambitious environmental projects in history, the Great Green Wall is an African-led initiative to plant trees and restore degraded lands across 8,000 kilometers, nearly 5,000 miles, from Senegal in the west to Djibouti in the east. The goal is to stop desertification, improve soil quality, and create jobs for local communities. Sustainable water management. Some countries are investing in solar-powered desalination plants, underground water storage, and improved irrigation techniques to conserve water and ensure long-term agricultural sustainability. Renewable energy projects. The Sahara has some of the strongest sunlight on Earth, making it ideal for solar energy production. Large-scale solar farms in countries like Morocco, Algeria, and Egypt are being developed to harness clean energy and reduce dependence on fossil fuels. Conservation of biodiversity. Scientists and conservationists are working to protect endangered species that live in the Sahara, such as the Saharan cheetah, addax antelope, and desert fox. Efforts are also being made to preserve traditional knowledge and indigenous practices that promote ecological balance. Technological innovations. New technologies such as drone-assisted reforestation, cloud seeding, and AI-driven climate modeling are being explored to mitigate the effects of desertification and support local communities. The future of the Sahara, a land of change and possibility. The Sahara is not just a relic of the past. It is a living, evolving landscape that continues to shape the lives of millions of people. While modern challenges threaten its environment and communities, new solutions and innovations offer hope for a more sustainable future. Whether through renewable energy, conservation, scientific advancements, or ancient wisdom passed down by nomadic tribes, the Sahara remains a land of resilience and transformation. Its story is still being written, shaped by the forces of nature, human ingenuity, and the enduring spirit of those who call it home. The Sahara Desert, often seen as a barren and unchanging wasteland, is in reality a land of deep history, resilience, and transformation. From its lush past as a fertile paradise to its pivotal role in shaping ancient civilizations and global trade, the Sahara has been a crucial crossroads of cultures, commerce, and innovation. It has witnessed the rise and fall of great empires, the spread of religions and ideas, and the triumph of human adaptability in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Yet, the Sahara's story is far from over. Today, it faces unprecedented challenges: climate change, desertification, political instability, and resource exploitation that threaten both its delicate ecosystem and the millions of people who depend on it. However, just as past civilizations found ways to thrive in the desert, modern efforts in conservation, renewable energy, and sustainable development offer hope for a future where the Sahara is not just endured but embraced. The Sahara is more than just a sea of sand. It is a testament to the enduring relationship between nature and humanity, a symbol of both struggle and survival. As we look toward the future, we must recognize its significance, not as a barrier, but as a bridge connecting past, present, and future generations. Whether through scientific innovation, environmental stewardship, or the wisdom of its ancient cultures, the Sahara continues to shape our world in ways that are both profound and enduring.